They just opened a store by me. I'd never heard of it before. Do you know PetSmart? Do you guys know PetSmart? They just opened one by me, and I stood in the parking lot for an hour and a half, just staring at the sign. I was like, is it PetSmart? Or Pet Smart? Or Pet S&M Art?
I am Steve Mazan, comedian. I'm originally from Chicago, now live in Los Angeles, California. So when I was 12 years old, living in the suburbs of Chicago, we finally got cable TV, turned it on that night, and Richard Pryor was on HBO. I had never seen anything like it. A year or two after that, another guy came on regular TV, David Letterman. That combined with the Richard Pryor thing and wanting to do comedy, I was like, you know what? Someday, I'm not only gonna do comedy, but I'm gonna be on David Letterman's show. It took a very long time to eventually try, even attempt stand-up comedy. I looked up on a website of places that had open mics in the city. I remember having some joke. It was about Kentucky Fried Chicken or something, and I got one laugh. And when I left, I was as high as I'd ever been in my life. I was so pumped up. I don't know that I've ever been more excited than that moment. Leaving that open mic that night.
I'm Steve Mazan. You guys are fantastic. Thanks so much. I saw an advertisement, though, last week on TV for a company said they could insure me for a fraction of what I've been paying. Unfortunately, that fraction was 5/3.
2005, I've been doing comedy about 6 years at that point, and I'm coming home from an improv after a show with a friend. I started feeling a little sick, and so first we pulled over and I said, hey, do you mind driving? I'm not feeling well. And so we switched places. By the time we get to my house, I'm like, something's seriously wrong here. Finally, 5 in the morning, we go to the emergency room, and they can't figure out what's wrong, but they said, all of the pain you're having, it sounds like you're having appendicitis. Maybe you need an emergency appendectomy. So that's what they're gonna do. Met a doctor, he said, we're gonna take care of this. And the next thing I remember was waking up and there's that same doctor there, and he looks down and says, hey, your appendix was fine, but I'm gonna introduce you to someone else. And that's when they told me that when they were in there taking out my appendix, they saw that there were tumors all over my liver. A week later, we found out that those tumors were cancerous. So at each point, we're trying to face it with this brave face, but it just keeps getting worse and worse news. We were like, well, what's the outlook on this kind of thing? They told us that they didn't have a cure or treatment for the tumors that were on my liver. And at one point, one of them says, look, we don't really know, but worst case scenario, you might only have 5 years to live. I'm very lucky. That was 2005, and we're in 2018 now. So in that moment, it's very hard to not accept someone telling you that might be all the time you have. Right away, I ended up getting married to my girlfriend at the time. Then I picked up the dream I had since I was 10 and 12 years old to get on the David Letterman show. Luckily, after the entire 5 years of the worst case scenario, they heard about me much earlier, but I eventually submitted something that they loved enough that they're like, okay, yeah, we like this, and we're gonna have you on the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Steve Mazan.
Chaz shared a little bit of my story, but I did in 2005, got diagnosed with neuroendocrine carcinoid tumors, and was given at that point a worst case scenario of 5 years to live. And here we are 13 years later, all having a good time laughing tonight. So how cool is that, right? It's the best.
Sometimes you reach your dream and then you're like, well, what next? What do I do now? You're at the top of the mountain. I think as a human being, for your own spirit, you have to find something else to replace that with. I remember my wife had to go back to work. And then a week after that, I was like, oh my God, I have to get back to work, right? Rent's gonna come in, I need to get back to it. So the routine kind of saved you. It takes you out of your rut. There's times where it scares me to think it's out there. It scares me when I do go for scans or blood tests and think, oh, all right, this might be the time. I've been very lucky for 10 years to get great news when I take these tests. What if this is the time I don't get good news? It's a constant play of keeping those thoughts at bay, and then sometimes letting them come in and thinking about it, thinking about death, and just doing my best to search in between now and then and whatever time I've got left, to make it the best for me and my friends and family around me. It's a bit like comedy. Sometimes if you think about comedy too much or try and break something down, why is that funny? Why did they laugh there? What was that? If you break it down too much, it just goes. It's just a bunch of pieces and it all goes away. And life, along with death, flipping and flopping, can be the same way. It doesn't matter how much time you have, it's what you do with it. What it all comes down to is if you're not chasing your dreams, you're already dead.